Hi, I'm Wynn, and welcome to another educational video by the Entropy System. We have done more than one video on DID vocabulary and words used to describe different parts of a system, the roles of different alters in a system, like host, protector, little, etc., etc., etc. All of the words that I used were words that I picked up online, either from researching DID in my own time, or words that I picked up from chatting with other people with DID and just the community using this vernacular to describe their system. And I used those words for a very long time, even though my therapist never did, never ever once. And I didn't really think about it very much, that she wouldn't use that, because, it made sense that she would have her own practice and her own way of describing things. Because of the nature of my own perception of my system and kind of the implications of some of the titles, even though I preach to the ends of the earth that we're all equal, we're all parts of the same whole, we're all just as real as anybody else, there was still sort of that internalized confusion of thinking, yeah, but I'm still the real one, because I had existed for so long without knowing them that I still felt like a core being, and they were just buddies that I had in my head. Even though we were part of the same family, I still felt the most real to me, the most authentic, which I know is really hypocritical from what I've been speaking, but feelings are feelings and understanding is understanding. I also struggled with a fear that I wasn't the core that I thought I was. Core is the word that we have used to describe the personality that was born with the body. And I thought that was myself. Except I started to doubt that a little bit, because there's a baby on the island. So there was a question that was burning, what if I'm not the personality that was born with the body? What if the baby is, and I'm a split off from that, and the baby is just kind of locked in that place because the trauma was so bad? And that bothered me. That kind of messed with my sense of identity of, well, if that's true, then how am I less than real? Do I have less of a right to live out here than anyone else? So I had all these struggles and these confusions and, these conflicting ideas and beliefs and feelings, that were going on in my head. But then I read this book. It's called Looking Through the Eyes of Trauma and Dissociation by Sandra Paulson. Jonathan talks about this book in his video where he talks about resources for people who think they might have DID or who know someone who has DID. And there was a part in the book where it's describing different roles that alters can play. But they don't say alters, they say parts. She says parts in the book. So there are child parts. There are angry parts. And then they got to what I had previously called the host, which I still kind of use just for the convenience of the word. But she described it as the part in charge of daily living. That was such a phenomenally groundbreaking moment for me, reading the part in charge of daily living. Because we're all parts. And my role, my job, was to be in charge of daily living for most of the body's life. It almost made me feel more legitimate because I was viewing myself as almost like a more complete being than my headmates, simply because I had life out here so much and I identified with the body and I identified with the legal name. And so I held to that, I'm the main one, But no, I was the part in charge of daily living. And reading that made me respect my headmates way more than I had previously, which I'm embarrassed about confessing this, because it's against what I've said in videos, which is something that I believed with my mind, but I just, couldn't really put together in my head and kind of break away from my confusion with what I knew to be true. It was like the head knew, but the heart didn't. So there was that confliction, but it kind of made everything fall into place. Also, it completely eliminated my fear of not being the original, because thinking of myself as a part, not like a host or a core or an original or whatever, but just a part doing my job, suddenly it didn't matter that there was a baby on the island, or that Jonathan could have potentially been the first, because he's taken female roles too, so he could have identified with the body. I don't know, I've never asked him, but it didn't matter anymore, because I was the part who was in charge of daily living. And parts is such a great word. That's the word that my therapist always used. And for whatever reason, it didn't quite click the same way it did as when I read this book. But it goes on to describe having counseling with a part who has good communication with everybody in the system, or a part that is mostly emotionally balanced, so that the therapist can stick to one face, but can still hear the problems of everybody else inside and work through them in a very sort of like not overly emotional way. And it's stressed that that part sometimes is not the part who is in charge of daily living. And in fact, there are certain situations where the part in charge of daily living shouldn't know the stuff that's going on in therapy, simply because that would disrupt their ability to do their job. And so, for me, generally, I was the one who was in therapy. And when there were days that I wasn't, my therapist would make sure to check in with me afterward. And, for a while I was like, yeah, that's because I'm her patient, because I'm the main one. But no, it was because I was kind of that central sphere, that central personality that could hear what the others were telling me and convey it to my therapist in a very balanced way. My cats are chasing each other through a tunnel. So the fact that those two roles lined up for me didn't make me more or less real. It just made those my jobs. Right now, Kit is also in charge of daily living. And that's great. And I love sharing that with her. And that doesn't make me any less real, or her any more real. She's the same amount of real as she's always been. And so am I. And even if one day I become an inside helper, I'm still real. It doesn't devalue me in any way. And the inside helpers that I have now are just parts that help from the inside for right now. And, we all just exist as parts of the system. And it's one single word. It may not be revolutionary to a lot of you, but it absolutely changed the way that I sort of emotionally understood what DID was and what my place in the system was, and how we all sort of factored together into one being. I know this one was kind of rambly. I really wanted to get across how just strong that moment was for me, and how it changed all those little details and really just let me accept and be proud of who I am and who my system is. So thanks for sticking around, watching the video. And also a big, huge thanks to Menagerie and all of our other Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing, and you allow us to put more time into this channel. If you guys are interested in becoming a patron, the link to that is in our description. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and I hope you guys have a really great day. See you next week. Bye!